Arnhem Bridge, September 21st, 1944, 0900 hours. Sergeant John Baskeyfield of the 2nd Battalion, South Staffordshire Regiment, crouches behind a pile of rubble that used to be a Dutch townhouse. In his hands, a weapon that weighs 32 pounds, shaped like an oversized drainpipe, painted olive drab, called the PIAT, Projector, Infantry, Anti-Tank. The name is bureaucratic. The weapon is brutal. It doesn't fire rockets, doesn't use gunpowder propulsion, doesn't work like any other anti-tank weapon in the war. It uses a spring, a massive coiled spring compressed with 300 pounds of force. When released, that spring drives a steel rod forward. The rod hits a bomb. The bomb flies toward a tank. Simple, primitive, effective. Assuming you can handle the recoil. Assuming your shoulder survives. Assuming the tank doesn't kill you first. Baskeyfield watches a German Panzer IV roll toward his position. 100 yards, 90 yards, 80 yards. He can see the commander in the turret, can see the machine gun traversing, searching, looking for targets. The bridge behind Baskeyfield holds 2,000 British paratroopers. Operation Market Garden, the bridge that was supposed to end the war, the bridge that became a killing ground, the bridge Baskeyfield will defend with a spring-loaded weapon that most soldiers hate. He shoulders the PIAT, feels its weight. 32 pounds of steel tube and coiled spring pressing against his collarbone. He aims. The simple metal sights line up on the Panzer's hull. 60 yards now. He fires. The spring releases. 300 pounds of stored energy converts to kinetic force in milliseconds. The steel rod slams forward, drives the bomb out of the tube. The recoil hits Baskeyfield like being kicked by a horse. His shoulder screams, his teeth rattle. The weapon tries to break his collarbone, but the bomb flies true. 3 pounds of high explosive. Traveling 150 feet per second, slow compared to rockets, but fast enough. The bomb hits the Panzer's side armor, penetrates, detonates inside. The tank stops. Smoke pours from hatches. The crew bails out. Running, burning, dying. 1 tank dead, 3 more coming. Baskeyfield reloads. The PIAT requires strength, requires technique, requires willingness to endure pain. He's got all 3. The spring that killed a German tank gets cocked again. By September 1944, the British Army faces a problem American forces solved differently. German tanks, Panthers, Tigers, armor too thick for standard infantry weapons. Machine guns bounce off. Rifles are useless. You need something heavy, something portable, something that turns foot soldiers into tank killers. The Americans have the bazooka, rocket-propelled, relatively light. 2 men can carry and operate it. Effective range 200 yards, penetrates 4 inches of armor. Good weapon, smart design. The British have the PIAT, not rocket-propelled. Absurdly heavy. 1 man operates but barely. Effective range 100 yards on paper, 50 yards in reality. Penetrates 4 inches of armor when it works. Questionable weapon, desperate design. The difference, physics and philosophy. The bazooka uses rockets, controlled combustion, expanding gas, predictable trajectory. Modern technology applied to ancient problem. The PIAT uses a spring, mechanical energy, stored force, medieval catapult mechanics applied to 20th century warfare. 1 weapon looks forward, 1 looks backward, both kill tanks. The PIAT exists because Britain couldn't build bazookas fast enough, couldn't get rocket production scaled, couldn't wait for American imports, needed anti-tank capability immediately, needed something manufacturable with available resources, needed innovation born from limitation. An engineer named Stewart Blacker designed the solution, not a rocket scientist, a spring enthusiast. He believed mechanical systems beat chemical propulsion, believed simpler was better, believed a big enough spring could throw a bomb hard enough to kill a tank. He was right, mostly. The weapon worked, sort of. Killed tanks. Sometimes, but soldiers hated it. Every soldier who ever carried one, every man who ever fired one, every squad that got issued one instead of a bazooka. They hated it with passion reserved for weapons that hurt you almost as much as they hurt the enemy. The PIAT mechanism is brilliantly simple and brutally effective. A steel tube, 39 inches long. Inside the tube, a massive coiled spring. Compressed spring stores 300 pounds of force, more force than a car jack, enough force to lift a small vehicle. That spring drives a steel rod called a spigot. The spigot is blunt, heavy, designed to transfer energy. In front of the spigot, the bomb, not a bullet, not a shell, a bomb. 3 pounds of high explosive wrapped in a steel casing. Hollow charge warhead, shaped charge technology. On detonation, the explosive forms a jet of superheated metal. Temperature, thousands of degrees. Velocity, thousands of feet per second. That jet punches through armor, doesn't matter how thick. The physics work at any thickness. 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches. The shaped charge penetrates, creates a hole, sends molten metal and explosive force into the tank's interior, kills crew, detonates ammunition, ignites fuel, destroys the tank from inside. To fire the PIAT, first, cock the spring, place the weapon on the ground, butt down, stand on the shoulder rest, grab the cocking handle, pull upward with your entire body weight. The spring compresses. 300 pounds of resistance, your legs shake, your back strains, your arms burn, but the spring compresses, locks in place, energy stored. Second, load the bomb, slide it onto the spigot. The bomb's tail fin fits over the rod. Secure it. Make sure it's seated properly. If it's loose, the weapon misfires. If it's too tight, the weapon jams. Third, aim. Shoulder the weapon. Feel 32 pounds of steel press against your collarbone. Look through the simple metal sights. No optics, no rangefinder, just notch and post. Estimate range, estimate drop, guess windage. Hope your math is right. Fourth, fire. Pull the trigger. The spring releases. The spigot slams forward, hits the bomb, drives it out of the tube. The recoil hits you. Immediately, violently. 32 pounds of weapon moving backward. 300 pounds of spring force converting to momentum. Your shoulder absorbs it all. If you're braced wrong, the weapon breaks your collarbone. If you're positioned wrong, it breaks your jaw. If you're unlucky, it breaks both. But if you do everything right, the bomb flies. 150 feet per second. Arcing trajectory. Slow enough to see, fast enough to hit. And when it hits a tank, the tank dies. Stewart Blacker developed the PIAT concept in 1941. Britain was desperate. France had fallen. Dunkirk had evacuated. German invasion seemed imminent. The British Army needed anti-tank weapons, needed them immediately, needed them in quantities existing manufacturing couldn't provide. Blacker proposed his spigot mortar concept. Not new. He'd been developing spigot weapons since the 1930s. The idea, instead of containing propellant inside the projectile, use external energy. A spring, compressed air, anything that stores mechanical energy. The advantages: simpler manufacturing. No complex rocket motors, no propellant chemistry. No explosive hazards in production, just steel tubes and springs. Britain could make those, could make thousands, could equip every infantry platoon. The first prototypes were disasters. Springs too weak, bombs too heavy, recoil too severe. Test firers suffered injuries, broken bones, dislocated shoulders. cracked teeth from the weapon slamming back. Blacker refined the design, strengthened the spring, lightened the bomb, added padding, added shock absorption, added mechanical advantage to the cocking mechanism. By 1942, the weapon worked. Barely. It could penetrate 4 inches of armor at 100 yards. It could be operated by one man. Mostly, it could be manufactured with available resources. Definitely. The British Army placed orders. 10,000 units, then 20,000, then 50,000. Production ramped up. Factories converted. Workers trained. By mid-1943, PIAT weapons reached frontline units. The soldiers' reaction was universal. What the hell is this thing? It looks like a pipe, weighs like an anchor, recoils like a cannon. And we're supposed to use this against German tanks? Yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Good luck. Try not to break your shoulder. The PIAT specifications reveal why soldiers hated it. Weight, 32 pounds, compared to the bazooka, 13 pounds. The PIAT weighs 2.5 times more. Carrying it on a march destroys your shoulder. Carrying it in combat destroys your mobility. You can't run with 32 pounds of steel tube, can't maneuver quickly, can't dive for cover. You lumber, you struggle, you curse. Length, 39 inches. Awkward. Too long for close quarters. Too short for long range. The worst compromise between portability and effectiveness. Effective range, officially 100 yards. Reality, 50 yards. Maybe 70 if you're skilled and lucky. Beyond that, the bomb drops too much. Trajectory becomes guesswork. Hitting anything is miracle. The bazooka reaches 200 yards effectively. The Panzerfaust reaches 100 yards. The PIAT reaches 50. That means getting close. Dangerously close. Tank machine gun can kill you close. Penetration, 4 inches of armor, same as bazooka, same as Panzerfaust. The PIAT's shaped charge works. When it hits, when it detonates, when everything goes right. Rate of fire, theoretical 6 rounds per minute. Practical, 2 rounds per minute. Maybe 3 if you're fast and strong and don't care about accuracy. Cocking takes time. Loading takes time. Aiming takes time. Each shot is deliberate. Each shot is exhausting. Recoil force, approximately 150 foot-pounds of energy, delivered directly to your shoulder. For comparison, a 12-gauge shotgun, about 50 foot-pounds. The PIAT hits 3 times harder, 3 times more likely to injure the firer, 3 times more painful. Reliability, questionable. The spring mechanism is sensitive. Dirt jams it, moisture corrodes it, cold weather weakens it, hot weather overcompresses it. The weapon requires maintenance, constant cleaning, careful handling. Soldiers in combat rarely provide either. The result? Misfires, failures, jams, weapons that don't work when you need them. When a German tank is 60 yards away and closing, when your life depends on that spring releasing, when the spring doesn't release, that's when you die. Training. British soldiers on the PIAT was an exercise in pain management. Standard instruction course, 1 day, 8 hours. Morning. Classroom instruction. How the weapon works, how to cock it, how to load it, how to aim it, how to not die from recoil. Afternoon. Live fire practice, 3 rounds per soldier. 3 chances to experience what 32 pounds of recoiling steel feels like against your collarbone. Instructor Sergeant William Morris, Infantry Training Center, April 1943. The lads hate the PIAT, hate carrying it, hate firing it, hate everything about it. First time they fire, most flinch. Anticipate the recoil. Pull away, miss the target completely. Second time, they brace better, still miss. Third time, maybe they hit, maybe they don't. 3 rounds isn't enough training, but we don't have ammunition to spare. We don't have time. We send them to combat with 3 practice shots and a prayer. Most learn on the job. Those who survive learn fast. Those who don't never learn at all. The recoil injury rate during training, approximately 15%. 15 out of every 100 soldiers suffered some injury. Bruised shoulders, cracked ribs, loosened teeth, dislocated joints, minor injuries mostly, but enough to create fear, enough to make soldiers reluctant to fire, enough to reduce combat effectiveness. The British Army addressed this with regulations: proper firing stance, feet shoulder width apart, weapon tight against shoulder, lean into it, brace for impact, absorb the recoil with your whole body, don't fight it, accept it, endure it. Standard military solution. Can't eliminate the problem, teach soldiers to tolerate it. The soldiers tolerated it. Barely. They carried the PIAT because orders. They fired it because necessity. They survived it because they had no choice. And occasionally, when everything aligned, when the spring released perfectly and the bomb flew true and the tank exploded, they appreciated it. Briefly, then went back to hating it. John Daniel Baskeyfield became the PIAT's most famous user. Born 1916, Stoke-on-Trent, England, enlisted in the South Staffordshire Regiment. Quiet, competent, not particularly distinguished, just a soldier doing his job. September 1944, Operation Market Garden, airborne assault to capture bridges across the Netherlands. Supposed to end the war by Christmas. The plan failed. The execution was worse. Baskeyfield's battalion landed at Arnhem. Objective: hold the bridge, wait for relief. Relief never came. September 21st, 3rd day of fighting. German forces counterattack. Tanks, infantry, artillery, everything. The British paratroopers hold, barely. Baskeyfield mans a 6-pounder anti-tank gun, positioned covering the bridge approach. He's not alone. His gun crew, 3 men. They've held this position for 2 days, killed several tanks, taken casualties, down to minimal ammunition. The Germans send armor, Panzer IVs, Stu-G assault guns, overwhelming force. Baskeyfield's gun crew engages, fires, hits, kills 1 tank, 2 tanks. The Germans return fire. High explosive shells. The gun position takes a direct hit. 2 crew members killed instantly. 1 wounded, gun damaged, inoperable. Baskeyfield survives, unhurt. But his weapon is gone. He grabs a PIAT, the backup weapon. The weapon nobody wants until you need it. Until your primary gun is destroyed and German tanks are advancing and you have nothing else. He positions himself, alone, 30 yards from the bridge. Open position, no cover. Just Baskeyfield and 32 pounds of spring-loaded desperation. 3 German tanks approach. He fires. First shot hits. Panzer IV stops, burns. Second tank, fires, hits, kill. Third tank, fires, misses. The tank returns fire. Machine gun. Baskeyfield takes cover, reloads, exposes himself, fires again. Hit. Another tank disabled. German infantry advances, supporting the tanks, trying to flank, trying to kill the British soldier with the impossible weapon who's destroying their armor. Baskeyfield holds, fires at infantry. The PIAT isn't designed for anti-personnel use. Doesn't matter. He uses it anyway. Bombs explode among German soldiers. Kill, wound, force them back. The Germans call in artillery. Mortar fire. Shells land around Baskeyfield's position. He doesn't move, doesn't retreat. Reloads, fires, holds the bridge. For hours. 1 man, 1 PIAT. Multiple tanks destroyed. Infantry repelled. Position held until a mortar shell lands directly on him. September 21st, 1944. John Baskeyfield dies at his post, still holding the PIAT, still defending the bridge. Posthumous Victoria Cross, Britain's highest military honor. Citation reads, Sergeant Baskeyfield's supreme gallantry and self-sacrifice stabilized a difficult situation and enabled his comrades to withdraw safely. Translation: he died so others could live. He died with a weapon everyone hated, a weapon that broke shoulders and missed targets and weighed too much. But when it mattered, when one man stood between German tanks and British paratroopers, the PIAT worked. And Baskeyfield made it work until he couldn't work anymore. Other PIAT success stories reveal the weapon's potential despite its flaws. Corporal Andrew Henderson, 6th Airborne Division, Rhine Crossing, March 1945. We were pinned down by a Panther tank, 75mm gun destroying our positions, casualties mounting. Someone had to do something. I had the PIAT. Didn't want it. Nobody wants it. But it was there. I crawled forward, got within 40 yards. Tank couldn't depress its gun low enough to hit me. Perfect PIAT range. Fired, hit the turret ring. Bomb penetrated. Tank stopped shooting. Crew bailed. We advanced, took the position. The PIAT saved us, hurt like hell firing it. My shoulder was purple for weeks, but alive with purple shoulder beats, dead with working shoulder. Lieutenant James Crawford, 1st Airborne Division, Normandy, June 1944. The PIAT's best feature is nobody expects it to work. German tankers know about bazookas, watch for rocket backblast, take evasive action. But the PIAT has no backblast, no visible signature. You fire and the tank crew doesn't know where the shot came from. Gives you time for second shot, maybe third. That surprise factor saved my life multiple times. The weapon is terrible, but it's unpredictably terrible. Sometimes that's an advantage. Private Thomas Wright, Guards Armored Division, Germany, April 1945. I used the PIAT twice. First time, missed. Bomb went over the tank, hit a building. Building collapsed, blocked the street. Tank couldn't advance. Accidental success. Second time, hit the tank. Stewart assault gun, direct hit on the superstructure. Shaped charge penetrated. Crew abandoned vehicle. Intentional success. Both times my shoulder hurt for days. Both times I thanked God we had something that could kill tanks. Even if that something tried to kill us back through recoil, the pattern repeats. Soldiers hate the PIAT. Heavy, unwieldy, painful, unreliable. But when tanks appear and no other weapon works, the PIAT becomes beautiful, becomes necessary, becomes the difference between living and dying, ugly but effective, brutal but functional. The weapon nobody wants until everyone needs it. Comparing the PIAT to other anti-tank weapons reveals British compromise thinking. The bazooka, American, rocket-propelled, 13 pounds, 200-yard range, electronic firing system, backblast signature, requires 2 operators, simple to use, relatively safe, effective, modern weapon designed by engineers who understood rocketry. The Panzerfaust, German, rocket-propelled, 11 pounds, 100-yard range, one-shot disposable, massive warhead, huge penetration, requires 1 operator, simple to use, extremely dangerous to user from backblast, effective, desperate weapon designed by engineers running out of resources. The PIAT, British, spring-propelled, 32 pounds, 50-yard practical range, reusable, adequate warhead, medium penetration, requires 1 strong operator, complex to use, dangerous to user from recoil, moderately effective, compromise weapon designed by engineers working with limited industrial capacity. Each weapon reflects national character. Americans, technological, sophisticated, resource-intensive. Germans, brutal, effective, disposable. British, practical, economical, painful. The PIAT wasn't the best anti-tank weapon, wasn't the lightest, wasn't the longest ranged, wasn't the easiest to use, But it was manufacturable. Britain could make thousands without straining rocket propellant production, could equip every infantry platoon without importing American weapons, could field anti-tank capability with available resources. The soldiers paid the price, paid in weight carried, paid in recoil endured, paid in difficulty used. But they had anti-tank capability, had something to fight German armor, had a chance. That's the PIAT's purpose, not to be the best, to be good enough when nothing better exists, to fill the gap between nothing and something, to give British infantry a weapon that kills tanks, even if it hurts like hell to fire. Mission accomplished. Painfully, but accomplished. German tankers who faced PIAT attacks described the experience with respect and confusion. Oberleutnant Hans Schmidt, Panzer IV commander, captured April 1945. The British infantry weapon confused us. We knew the American bazooka, knew to watch for backblast, knew the signature. The British weapon was different. No visible launch, no smoke trail, just sudden impact and explosion. First time it happened, we thought it was Panzerfaust, but Panzerfaust makes noise, makes visible flash. This British weapon was quiet, relatively. You hear a thump, then your tank is hit. Very disconcerting. Hard to locate the shooter, hard to return fire. The weapon seemed primitive, heavy, awkward-looking when we captured examples, but effective nonetheless. Penetrated our armor, killed crew, destroyed tanks. We learned to respect it, learned to fear British infantry at close range, learned that strange weapons can be deadly weapons. Feldwebel Otto Braun, Tiger Y Gunner, Normandy, June 1944. A British paratrooper hit our Tiger with his spring weapon. The bomb struck our side armor, penetrated, didn't destroy the tank, but wounded our driver, damaged internal systems. We had to withdraw for repairs. The paratrooper died. Our machine gunner killed him while he reloaded. But he achieved his mission, disabled our tank, saved his comrades, with a weapon that looked like engineering joke. We recovered the weapon, examined it. Couldn't believe British soldiers carried such heavy, crude device. But it worked. That's all that matters in war. Does it work? The British weapon worked. The German perspective reveals battlefield truth. Effectiveness beats elegance. The PIAT looked ridiculous, weighed absurdly, worked crudely. But when a 3-pound bomb penetrates your tank's armor and kills your crew, you don't care how primitive the launching mechanism was. You care that you're dying. You care that British infantry can kill your tank from 50 yards. You care that the strange spring weapon is effective despite appearing obsolete. The Germans respected the PIAT, not because it was sophisticated, because it killed. Respect on the battlefield comes from lethality. Nothing else matters. The Rhine crossing operations in March 1945 showcased the PIAT's value in river assault. Operation Plunder, British and Canadian forces crossing the Rhine River. Last major water barrier before Germany's heartland. German forces defend heavily. Tanks positioned on the eastern bank. Waiting, watching, ready to destroy Allied bridgeheads. The assault boats cross. Infantry establishes footholds, holds positions, waits for armor support. British tanks can't cross yet. Bridges not built. Ferries not ready. The infantry faces German armor with infantry weapons. PIATs become critical. Each platoon carries one. 32 pounds of anti-tank capability. The men hate carrying it across the river, hate the weight, hate the bulk, but they carry it. Because German tanks wait. Because without the PIAT, tanks slaughter infantry. Because sometimes you carry what you hate to survive what you fear. Sergeant Robert Mills, Royal Engineers, Rhine Crossing, March 24th. We got across the river, established position in a village. Then German tanks came. 2 Panthers. We had nothing heavy, no anti-tank guns yet, just PIATs. 2 men with PIATs engaged. First shot missed. Panther returned fire. Destroyed the building our lad was in. He survived, relocated. Second shot hit. Penetrated the Panther's side armor. Tank stopped. Didn't brew up, but stopped. Second Panther withdrew. The PIAT saved our position. Saved dozens of men who would have died if those tanks overran us. The weapon worked when we needed it most. When there was nothing else. That's all you can ask from a weapon. Work when it matters. The Rhine operations validated the PIAT concept, not because it was great, because it was there, because British infantry could carry anti-tank capability without waiting for heavy weapons, could fight tanks immediately, could hold positions against armor while bridges were built and reinforcements arrived. The PIAT filled that critical gap. The gap between landing and support, the gap between bridgehead and breakout, the gap where men die if they can't kill tanks. British infantry could kill tanks, with springs and bombs and broken shoulders, but they could kill tanks. That capability mattered more than the pain. Post-war analysis by British Army Operational Research examined the PIAT's effectiveness. The study reviewed thousands of combat reports, interviewed hundreds of soldiers, analyzed success rates, failure modes, casualties. The findings were mixed but revealing. Success rate, approximately 40%. 40% of PIAT shots fired in combat achieved mission kills on enemy armor. 60% missed or failed to penetrate or failed to detonate. 40% success compared favorably to other infantry anti-tank weapons. The Bazooka, 45%. The Panzer 50%. The PIAT wasn't dramatically worse, just harder to use. Casualty rate among PIAT operators, high. 23% of soldiers operating PIATs in combat became casualties, not from recoil injuries, from enemy fire. PIAT effective range meant getting close. Close meant exposed. Exposed meant vulnerable. But 23% was acceptable compared to 40% tank kill rate. The math worked. Lose 1 in 4 operators to save 3 in 4 platoons from tank attack. Grim calculus, but warfare is grim. Reliability issues, significant. 15% mechanical failure rate. Springs broke, spigots jammed, triggers malfunctioned. Maintenance in field conditions was difficult. Cleaning was insufficient. The weapon required care soldiers couldn't provide in combat. But 85% reliability was acceptable. Better than some weapons, worse than others. Average for complex mechanical systems in hostile environments. Soldier satisfaction, universally low. Every survey, every interview, every after-action report. Soldiers hated the PIAT, hated carrying it, hated firing it, hated maintaining it, but acknowledged it worked, acknowledged it saved lives, acknowledged it was better than nothing. The final conclusion: the PIAT represents acceptable compromise between manufacturing limitations and operational requirements. It is not an ideal weapon. It is a functional weapon produced under constraint. Its continued use is recommended until superior alternatives become available. Translation: it's terrible, but it's what we have. Keep using it until we get something better. Something better arrived in 1946. The war ended. The PIAT was retired, replaced by American-designed weapons, replaced by rockets instead of springs. Nobody mourned. The soldiers who carried PIATs celebrated. Finally. No more 32 pounds of steel, no more recoil injuries, no more spring mechanisms. The weapon that saved thousands of lives disappeared without ceremony, without memorial, without gratitude, just quiet retirement to storage depots and museums, where weapons go to be forgotten. The PIAT's mechanism represents the last gasp of mechanical warfare: spring power, stored energy, physical force. concepts dating to ancient siege weapons, catapults, ballistas, trebuchets. The PIAT was a trebuchet scaled down to man-portable size, modernized with shaped charges and steel construction, but fundamentally medieval. The future was chemical propulsion, rockets, missiles, controlled combustion. The PIAT looked backward while pointing forward. Spring technology applied to modern warfare. It worked. Barely. But it worked. That alone deserves recognition. In an era of increasing technological complexity, someone built an effective weapon from simple mechanics. From a spring, from a rod, from basic physics, no electronics, no sophisticated chemistry, no advanced materials, just steel and force and geometric precision. The shaped charge warhead was modern. The delivery system was ancient. The combination killed German tanks, killed Panthers, killed Tigers, killed Stooges. 3 pounds of explosive delivered by 300 pounds of spring force penetrated armor designed to stop modern weapons. The irony was lost on nobody, least of all the German tank crews who died to it, least of all the British soldiers who carried it. Everyone recognized the PIAT's awkward position between eras, between mechanical and chemical, between old and new, between desperation and innovation. The weapon existed because Britain couldn't build enough modern weapons fast enough, so they built old weapons with new warheads, built catapults that killed tanks, built trebuchets that won battles. The medieval solution to the modern problem worked well enough to save lives, well enough to destroy armor, well enough to matter. Then technology moved on. Rockets replaced springs, chemistry replaced mechanics, the future replaced the past. The PIAT became historical curiosity, the weapon that bridged eras, the last spring-powered weapon of modern warfare, the final mechanical solution before chemical solutions dominated. A footnote, but an important one, because it proved that simplicity can defeat sophistication, that old ideas can solve new problems, that sometimes the best weapon isn't the most advanced. It's the one you can actually build and field and use, even if using it breaks your shoulder. The human cost of the PIAT extends beyond combat casualties, beyond the soldiers who died using it, beyond the tanks destroyed, beyond the battles won. The cost includes the men who carried 32 pounds for years, who developed chronic shoulder injuries from recoil, who suffered hearing loss from explosions too close, who carry physical scars decades later. A reunion of PIAT operators in 1985 brought together veterans, men in their 60s and 70s, 50 men who'd carried the weapon in combat. Every single one had shoulder problems, arthritis, limited mobility, chronic pain. The PIAT's legacy, written in damaged joints and aching bones. They shared stories, laughed about the weapon they hated, joked about recoil, about weight, about how much they cursed it during the war, but also shared pride. Pride in making terrible weapon work, pride in killing tanks with springs, pride in surviving something that tried to kill them from both ends. Enemy tanks ahead, punishing recoil behind, survived both. That's worth pride. One veteran, name lost to history, spoke at the reunion. We hated the PIAT. Every man here hated carrying it, hated firing it, hated everything about it. But we used it, made it work, killed tanks with it, saved lives with it. Would I want to do it again? God, no. Would I trade those experiences? No. The PIAT was part of us, part of our war, part of our story. Terrible weapon. But our terrible weapon, we made it work when it shouldn't have. That says something about us, about what soldiers can do when they have no choice. We didn't have choice. We had PIAT. We made it enough. The room agreed. Terrible weapon, but theirs. Carried in combat, used under fire, survived against odds. The PIAT operators formed exclusive club membership, anyone who'd fired one in combat. Club requirement, shoulder damage and tank kills. Club motto, it hurt us, but we hurt them more. The PIAT's human legacy is complicated. Physical damage, psychological pride, mechanical hatred, operational success, all mixed together, all inseparable. The weapon that broke shoulders and killed tanks and saved lives and earned respect despite being universally despised. That's the PIAT. That's what it meant. That's what it was. The PIAT disappeared from service after 1946, replaced, retired, forgotten by everyone except those who carried it. Museums collected a few display pieces, historical artifacts, evidence of British wartime desperation and innovation. The Imperial War Museum in London keeps one, fully functional, occasionally demonstrated. Visitors watch the spring mechanism explained, watch the cocking procedure demonstrated, watch the weapon shouldered. They don't understand, can't understand. The weight is just weight without carrying it for miles. The recoil is just physics without feeling it against your collarbone. The weapon is just historical object without using it against German tanks while Germans try to kill you. The placard says, Projector, Infantry, Anti-Tank. Mark I British anti-tank weapon. Spring-powered. Effective against medium armor. Used 1943 to 1946. Weight 32 pounds. 12 words. 12 words to summarize thousands of broken shoulders, hundreds of tanks destroyed, dozens of battles won, countless lives saved by men who hated the weapon that saved them. The PIAT deserves more than 12 words, deserves recognition, deserves acknowledgement that sometimes the worst weapon is the best weapon because it's the only weapon. That sometimes soldiers make terrible tools, work through skill and courage and sheer determination. That sometimes innovation means going backward to move forward. That sometimes a spring kills better than a rocket because you can build 10,000 springs while you're building 1,000 rockets. The PIAT was never going to win design awards, never going to impress engineers, never going to make soldiers happy. But it was going to kill tanks, was going to give infantry anti-armor capability, was going to save British lives by taking German lives. Mission accomplished, at the cost of countless bruised shoulders, countless cursing soldiers, countless moments of hating the weapon while thanking God it worked. John Baskeyfield died holding one, died defending a bridge with spring-powered bombs against German armor, died proving that terrible weapons in capable hands are better than perfect weapons that don't exist. The PIAT exists, existed, mattered. The 32-pound spring that killed German tanks, the weapon everyone hated until everyone needed it, the last mechanical anti-tank weapon of the modern era, the bridge between catapults and rockets, the British solution to impossible problem. It worked. That's all that matters. It hurt, but it worked.